Posloucháte .NET.CZ, podcast od vývojářů pro vývojáře o technologiích Microsoftu a o všem, co nás kolem nich zaujalo. Tohle je 57. epizoda, já jsem Martin Šimeček, je tady i
Vojta Mádr.
A společně jsme zavítali na konferenci Update. Je to tak, už je zase po roce a proběhla, asi bych si troufnul říct, největší technická akce se zahraničními speakery, kterou pořádá Tomáš Herceg. Byli jsme tam, Vojto, jak se ti líbilo?
No mně se to líbilo hodně, nečekaně a hlavně zahraniční speakeři byli opravdu kvalitní, jak už Konrad, s kterým jsme udělali rozhovor, tak třeba diskuze s Miguelem byla jako fakt úchvatná.
Mostly in the manager positions, and we have also a special guest, Miguel de Icaza. So you may ask any questions. We have 4 girls with microphones, so the closest one will come to you with the microphone, and you can say your question and hopefully get some nice answer.
Ano, stavil se tam i Miguel de Icaza, což by už jenom s jeho přítomnost na panelové diskuzi tu diskuzi úplně posunula někam jinam, protože on je prostě svérázná postava. Ale jinak samozřejmě i ten ostatní obsah byl hodně fajn. Myslím si, že zase se ta konference o trošku posunula dál. No a teď k tématu. Takže jak jsme se rozhodli to udělat letos oproti loňsku?
Letos jsme vás nechtěli zatěžovat jednotlivými krátkými rozhovory, ale udělali jsme rovnou jeden velký rozhovor s Konradem Kokosou, který se zabývá .NET Performance, napsal o tom knihu a myslím, že to povídání bylo opravdu super. Doufám, že nám odpustíte tu angličtinu, ale Konrad mluví velice klidnou angličtinou, takže budete tomu určitě rozumět.
Letos opět nahráváme na konferenci Update, ale oproti minulému roku jsme si připravili něco trošku speciálnějšího a uděláme rozhovor s jedním hostem a ten bude trošku delší, protože jsme narazili na Konrada z Polska, který je velice zajímavou osobností a je autorem jedné zajímavé knihy, takže si o tom popovídáme. Bude to v angličtině, takže se připravte, že příštích 30 minut budete muset napínat trošku jiné uši než obvykle. Hi Konrad.
Hi Konrad. Thank you for a great introduction.
I actually didn't introduce you at all, so it's up to you.
Me as a Polish, I'll understand some overall context in Czech, so...
Yes. I didn't have the courage to try to pronounce your surname. So if you could introduce yourself to the audience as a whole, and who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Konrad Kokosa, it is like that. I'm from Poland, as you said, and I'm a .NET developer, we can say like that. But currently I'm not involved in a let's say, regular work. Mainly my current work is to give trainings, some kind of consultancy. I could describe myself as a freelancer on the .NET field, especially on the field of performance and maybe architecture also.
Okay. You had a talk at the university yesterday, and that was about memory.
Yes.
And how to work with that.
Because it is all about memory in my case, and performance is related to memory, so it all connects somehow. So I have this general talk, which is maybe not very technical one, but I like to tell the people that memory is a kind of abstraction that is fooling us a little, because we are thinking that we have a lot of memory and there is no problem in accessing it, and there is plenty of cheap memory. This is the common way of thinking, and my talk is about that it is not like that, not in every scenario at least. So yeah, this is the talk about that. And I was talking to the students because my idea was, it was very nice that they are learning something about hardware, about computers, about algorithms, but I was studying. I was not taking this all seriously. I was just treating it as a thing to learn pass the exam and forget. And now I'm seeing that it is really important, and I'm just returning to all this knowledge because it turns out it is quite important in everyday life.
I think all of us can relate to this.
What do you think? It's difficult to learn with performance and memory management?
I believe it depends a little bit on the specific person. Some persons really like digging into stuff. So for them it will be easy because they will just find it interesting, even if they even didn't do it before. They will just start to dig in and they will find it very entertaining even. But there is another group of people that just doesn't care, and they maybe probably should not care because they are not like that. So it really depends, I believe. Some people are just interested and for them it will be easy. So there is, I believe, no general answer for that. For sure, I'm a person that for me it is easy because I like it. And this is the most important condition.
And what is all about? It's about time, or it's all about speed, or
in the performance in general, it's about money. How much do you spend on things that could be more maybe cheaper, because most typically our systems are working because this is the condition that something is published on production, that you have features and they are working. But then the question is how much it is, how costly it is, how much resources it consumes. So obviously all problems can be solved by money. If we have enough money, we can create a system that will be running on thousands of servers. Because it is so slow, so we need thousands of servers, or maybe we need only 10 servers if we optimize it. So this is always about money. A lot of companies, and I see it a lot, doesn't care because they have memory, they have resources, they have CPUs, everything is in cloud, and they are thinking in terms like infrastructure, and the whole IT is for them is a cost, and this cost is maybe even not so big for them, so they doesn't care. But there are other companies that want to be really scalable. They are even IT driven, like business, like Twitter, Netflix, Spotify. They are all technology driven, in fact. So for them, it will be tremendously important to be scalable, for example. So then it will be about performance. But this performance also is sometimes we tend to put attention on allocations. I'm also talking a lot about allocations, like use span of t or structs so instead of classes. A lot of these very detailed things. But I tend to have this talk. I stopped giving it for a while, but it is important to think of performance from perspective of the user. This is the thing that is really important. How fast the page, because every, in fact, application currently is it is a web application or it is mobile web application, but in the end it is almost all applications are web applications. So how the customer perceives the performance. It is whether it is fast or not, and this is important. All the details about scalability, whether we are using NoSQL or SQL, those are our implementation details. So when we are talking about performance, we should really start to measure the satisfaction of customers. So you should simply know how fast your page loads, and even not how fast it loads, because this is also an implementation detail. The most important thing is how fast the customer perceives that the page is loading. Mm-hmm. So like Twitter is measuring time to first tweet. For them is a measurement how fast the very first tweet is shown, because this is what the customer will see, will concentrate on, and then we can load more and more data. So it is all about perception, in fact. This is this, let's say, human way of thinking about performance. And then all this technology comes.
Right, and that's the next step. Once we know what the performance means, then we can decide if we want to throw more hardware on it.
Exactly.
Because that can definitely solve it, but that incurs costs.
Yeah.
Or whether we will optimize, and we can even end up in a situation where we just throw away best practices of how the code should be written and just use something else because it's more performant. And you talk about it as well.
Yes.
But I wanted to get back to one example you mentioned yesterday, which was very interesting, and that was about the missile and adding more hardware to it. Can you tell
this
what
is
the
a
story
typical
is?
example that I'm talking about, this approach of throwing money at problems. Like there was a customer producing software for my missile, and they have a memory leak on board software of the missile. And the problem was that obviously they noticed that they have a memory leak, but from the statistics of the typical average lifetime of a missile is not so big. So adding a little more, I don't remember, maybe bytes or kilobytes, was just enough as a solution, because the missile was hitting the target and the memory leak was no more important. So it was a very good solution. And I saw such solutions. When you have a memory leak on the production servers, the very first way of thinking in companies is let's restart it faster. Like not every day, but for each 4 hours. If we have enough instances, customers will not notice. And okay, it is a good solution if it's enough for us.
So when do you make such a decision? What have you considered? How do you decide whether it's worth doing the restart every 4 hours or rewrite the software and make it better?
Yeah, this is very political decision I see in many companies. Like whether it is really problematic for us, whether it is somehow influencing customers, because our application, for example, during this restart, maybe some customers are forced to log out. So it will be a problem for our customers. And then, for sure, sooner or later, someone will think on the management level, maybe we should fix that problem instead of restarting. So yeah, this is here. And also money, because everyone is talking that memory is cheap, everything is cheap, but in fact it is everything in cloud costs something. So I am starting to see this movement of cloud optimization. We are throwing everything into the cloud and it's working, but after some time people start to think maybe we could somehow cut the costs here, and then all those decisions also will come. So, but it's a very political one. I would rather not. It is not my level of decisions. I'm just appearing if some company decides to fix this.
Right, because I can imagine that even the work which is tied to the fact that you have to make it right costs something, and then it's about just putting weights on it.
Exactly.
Whether it is what was cheaper simply.
So you are specialized for performance in .NET?
Yes.
Do you have some advice for beginners how to start with performance in .NET?
That's a very good question, and I would tend to say that you should not care. I mean, .NET is really optimized. They are doing tremendous amount of work to have .NET running fast out of the box. So it should be really fast. And if beginners should think about performance, it would be kind of problem of the .NET itself, because .NET should be running fast for developers out of the box. So probably I will not tend to try to pollute their minds about performance. In most scenarios, like 80% of time, we are writing line of business applications where there is a simple domain, or it is maybe even simple CRUD application. And most of the cost is at the level of different decisions that the code itself. Like people tend to write bad optimized SQL queries, or everything related to database, like not indexing databases, not thinking about how database is optimized, making a lot of databases connections per a single HTTP request. Those are the problems that I'm seeing from people not so experienced. But although, or for example, when they have now we are living in this microservices world, so maybe this is getting less and less common problem, but at some time I saw that people were just not thinking about whether we should call something in parallel or in sequentially. So we have a service and you need an answer from 4 different services. And people just doesn't care and they will call it sequentially. Why they could call it in parallel? So also such almost architectural decisions are most problematic. And on the code level, it is really, working well, in fact. We have these edge cases, and there are the problems.
Yes, you probably will start hitting this once, for instance, your small streaming service becomes the new Netflix.
Exactly.
And you really want to be scalable. But also this is, people should be really careful because, we have all these conferences. Now we are on the conference. Everyone is talking about so nice stuff like microservices, Kubernetes, everything, Docker, machine learning. This is very nice, but we are seeing top of the iceberg of problems described by people that are just using this, find it interesting and want to share knowledge about that. It doesn't mean that we need to use it from tomorrow in our regular work. So I'm seeing startups spending days or weeks to configure everything as a microservice, which are Dockerized, used by Kubernetes, just to handle one customer per day because they have no customers. And the whole infrastructure will be scalable, but they will need this scalability maybe in 2 years or 3 years because
that's premature optimization.
Exactly, this is premature scalabilization. Maybe everyone, we want to have a scalable software, but we don't have customers. And maybe with this is the main problem sometimes that I see. So again, not the problem of the C# and the language itself, not the problem with the ecosystem, maybe the mentality of programmers. We want to have nice tools, we want to play with nice new things, so we tend to use that.
What are the potentially problematic situations you can run into with .NET?
First, when I'm invited to some company to analyze performance, most often it ends on the database level, unfortunately. So for me, it is boring. But throwing away all those cases, there we have problems typically with memory, in fact. So like memory leak or processes really consuming a lot of time in GC because we are creating a lot of objects. So memory consumption in general, like typically it is memory leak because company is seeing that their process is growing by day endlessly, and they are just afraid and they would like to fix it. This is a very measurable thing that you see that memory usage of a process is growing. So this is when most companies start to think about it. Like high usage of the GC in the process is less common because someone should start to measure it to know that there is such problem. And
GC
most companies
is garbage collector.
Yes, garbage collector. And most companies is not measuring this, so they don't know that they have this problem. Unless there is a more and more growing popularity of application performance monitoring tools like Dynatrace, like AppDynamics, and other tools that they are showing these things out of the box. So you have out-of-the-box warnings about the long pauses introduced by the GC, for example. And there are also the scenarios when they start thinking about performance and what is the reason. Because they see these warnings, and if they have these warnings, maybe they can ignore it, but they bought the tool to have some feedback from the tool. So ignoring the feedback from the tool would be quite strange if they bought the tool. So
can we be just a little more specific
Yes.
for people who
Sure.
don't really have experience with GC?
I see most typically we have some examples in .NET. For example, it ends in creating a lot of objects. And there are some problematic classes, like, for example, regular expressions. And the whole regex class is, let's say, it's not so well designed from the perspective of memory management. It allocates a lot of temporary data. And, for example, if a company is using regex to parse every HTTP request with some complex regex to check some header or something, it is working, but it will be allocating a lot of memory, and you will see this huge, quite big overhead of the GC then. If it is obviously more than one person visiting the web page per day, if we are talking about hundreds of requests per minute, per second, then you will notice such problems. Or for example, when your applications operate on bigger data, like some web applications are signing PDFs, or doing some OCR stuff, analyzing images, like you scan your ID passport or something. There are some images to process, and you're just processing some bigger data. Those bigger data land in so-called large object heap. Large object heap is managed by the GC, but it has some problems, like it's not by default compacted. So you could introduce a very big fragmentation of this region of memory because you create more and more data for your needs, and you are just growing the large object heap and quite fast, introducing fragmentation. So there is no memory leak, in fact. We are just creating more and more free space, which still consumes memory because this is how this old stuff is working.
Does it also mean that accessing the memory can be slower?
Yes, also. So those are two examples, like string concatenation, which is in every book. When you concatenate strings, you create temporary string. It is just for a while, because then you will probably add something more to it. This temporary string is no longer necessary, so then it should be garbage collected. And if you're doing it in a half path, in a lot of such concatenations in your processing of the single HTTP request, then again you will introduce a lot of such traffic, memory traffic, because you are allocating a lot of objects, then they need to be garbage collected. All this has some overhead.
What's the solution for this one?
We're using string builder, which is kind of mutable string in .NET. So we are adding something to string builder. In fact, you are adding something to the internal buffer, and in the end you are calling to string, getting the resulting string, because probably your API needs this string. So you have this string. And for the second problem, the solution is to use array pool, which is very popular currently. Because the most heavy objects in .NET are arrays, because they are the biggest one, and strings. So strings we covered a little, and in case of arrays, you can use array pool. Pool for arrays. So you need an array, okay, but instead of creating such an array every time, you can take it from a pool, use it, and return to the pool. And it is really, really good from various reasons, because one reason is you don't create a new arrays every time. And the second part is that this array is living on some memory region, and because you are using this memory region, it is better cached, so there are various benefits from that.
So that means that the arrays or the pool is pre-allocated, so it takes up space in memory?
It is allocated in a lazy way, so it manages some buckets of various sizes of arrays, but they are not pre-allocated. Only if you ask for some array of a given size, the array pool says, okay, I don't have such array, I will create one, and then I will reuse it. Mm-hmm. And it is managed in buckets, so because it would be nonsense to pre-allocate every size you can ask, because the size is quite various. So there are buckets like arrays of 4 elements, 8 elements, 16 elements, and up to many thousands of elements. I don't remember now. There are 16 or 17 buckets of various sizes. And inside of such bucket, you have up to 20 arrays that can be reused, and they are lazily initialized. If you don't ask for a given size, there are no such arrays. If you ask, they will be pre-allocated.
So it's called array pool as a class?
This class, yes. Array pool, it is generic type because it manages array pools of a given type. Then there is a .shared instance, static instance, which provides the default implementation with all those buckets that I was describing. If for some reason you want to have a different buckets with different sizes, you can create your own array pool. Nice. Simply. So, and it is really tremendously popular solution for performance now. If you look at the Kestrel code, ASP.NET Core, every time you need some memory, everything is operating on memory. Serializers also need some buffers. So it is all managed by array pools, in fact. But again, this is very nice, but I would not model domain with the help of array pools, like array pool of arrays of customers or something like that. It is not for the regular business code.
Which reminds me of data-oriented design. Yeah. That is something you talk about as well. What is it?
Yeah, this is an interesting part of software engineering, in fact, because we are all aware of object-oriented programming. Everyone wants to write nicely designed object-oriented code. Let's say maybe
Or functional.
Or functional, yeah. This is the second. And the data-oriented design is in fact throwing all this away. Like both approaches are bad for data-oriented design because it is solely oriented about the transformations of data. Your application needs to transform. In fact, it is transforming some data. You get customers, you process somehow to calculate something on them, or you get images and you need to calculate something from those data. So data-oriented design is all about how you could design your algorithms and data structures to be in terms of good memory access. So it is very low level, in fact, because you need to understand, in case of data-oriented design, how, in fact, memory access is working. It is, okay, I agree, it is implementation specific, so we also need to know whether it is Intel, or maybe it is ARM, or maybe it is some exotic CPU. But currently, 99% of the world is using Intel and x64 architecture, so the most typical patterns are working everywhere. And yeah, this is a thing that is, and I saw that I said that it is throwing away both object-oriented design and functional design because it is not about the good design in terms of readability. Like it is more about how you could design your structures to be good for the computer, not for the human. So sometimes the code looks strange, the data structures seem strange, but because it is all about this part. And if you would like to read about more, there is a popular approach which is called entity component system, which is all about this. But it is, well, let's say nicely designed with some parts. So it is nice design how to wrap around all this idea to something usable. Especially it is popular in game development. Because game development needs this. It is all about performance in case of game dev. So if you would like to, if you are listening to us now, search for entity component system.
So we're getting back to the fact that not everybody needs it.
Yeah.
But once you do need it, you will know. You will recognize that object-oriented design is not for you.
Exactly. Probably it is not like you need it in your business application. It is in some parts of, maybe if you're doing some processing, big data, but you already know that you are on the ground which is not so typical, so you are searching for fast solutions then.
And it might be just part of the application. You might want to generate a huge report once a week.
Absolutely. Typically it will be this small 1 to 5% of your code which is considering performance. And this is also very good because when I'm giving all those talks about C# performance, all those low-level stuff like ref structs, managed pointers, the very first question that I always get is, why do you need to use C# for such stuff? Why don't you need C++, for example? And for me, the answer is, because I'm a C# developer and my whole company probably is using C#. I have whole .NET ecosystem. I don't want to hire C++ developer because I probably won't be a good C++ developer. I would need to find good C++ developer and somehow plug in him to the whole infrastructure, the whole .NET ecosystem. It's simply, okay, it would work, but if I have this possibility to write even the same level of as fast code in C#, it is obvious choice for me. And all these things happening currently are that C# starts to become multi-level language. You can write for years in high-level C#, but you have these possibilities in low-level C# like managed pointers, even the row pointers, to write almost C++ level code. So it is really nice.
I was just about to ask if you think that C# gives you the power to write performant code.
Yes, and this is even very nice. We can link. Recently, there was academic work about writing network drivers in the user space, because this is one of the benefits to write the driver in a user space, not in the kernel space, because there are no context switches between the kernel and the user space, so it is beneficial by itself. But also, it was beneficial. This academical research was about how to write this in high-level languages. And there was obviously a C++ as a baseline implementation, but there also was C# implementation, Rust, Java, I believe they even start to write this in JavaScript. But the most important thing for us is that the C# code was almost identically fast as the C++ version. So we have this possibility. The Python was the slowest one, and a lot of different languages behaved much worse, but C# was able to almost catch the C++ performance. So it is nice.
So to finalize our interview, just switching to a little lighter note, I would say, you're also a book author.
Yes.
And a board game author.
Yes.
So let's talk about the book first. Okay. What is it and why did you write it?
Yeah, it's 2 kilogram book about memory management solely. Because I was working on this stuff in my regular work, I saw that there are problems related to .NET memory. If there are some performance problems, most typically they were .NET memory, they were related to the memory. So I thought it will be nice. There is no such book on the market. I always wanted to write a book since I remember. So, okay, let's write a book. And then 2 years later...
No, I just don't believe it. So let's say some of our listeners or myself, I want to write a book.
Okay.
So what does it take? What do I have to do?
It was a tremendous amount of energy and time influencing me and my family because it is really huge commitment. I was not expecting it would be so big. I was simply trying to write it. At the beginning, I was trying to write it during my regular work at evenings or weekends, but it doesn't work because I was tired simply and I need to see my family, so it was hard. Then I took 3 months unpaid leave from my regular work, but I was thinking 3 months will be quite a lot of time. I will just push the work a lot, but I just did quite nothing because 3 months was there was some traveling, there was some things to do at home, there was some problems, the work was very slow, so it didn't work. Obviously I was progressing, but it was very, very slow. Then and after 1.5 years of such work, I decided that the work is so slow that I just need to finish. And the only solution is, because I had some work already done, and was decision whether I'm continuing it or maybe should I simply cancel the whole thing. And I thought that it would be really waste of the time that I committed already, so I just left my regular work. For 1 year I was just writing this book full hour, 8 to 12 hours per day for 1 year.
Every day?
Every day. Every working day, obviously. Weekends I was trying to have a free. So full-time work. I don't imagine that I could be really able to deliver it in the previous way of working on it. I was just, because I will probably be in the middle of the book now after the year or two, so it was the only solution just to commit myself totally into that as a kind of investment, obviously, because for the very beginning I was also trying to do some trainings or freelance job during this beginning of this unpaid period of time, but it didn't work also because every training needed some preparations, and also I ended in not doing the work on book but preparing workshops, for example. So after some time I just decided, okay, for now, and I believe it was 10 or 11 months, I was really doing only that, without any income, in fact.
How did you break the blank page syndrome?
I don't know. It somehow happened eventually. I was sometimes really paralyzed by the fact that I really know what I want to write, but I didn't. Every approach, every try to write something, I was not satisfied, so I was erasing it, trying to somehow write it in another way. So it was very frustrating. And I had different approaches, in fact. Like the first very approach was that I was trying to write something ideally at the very beginning. Like if I wrote something, this is a part of the chapter that won't be changed. This is written. Now I'm progressing to the second part. But this was not possible in fact, because every time I did something, I discovered that I should do some fixes in the previous parts. So then I was thinking, let's be more agile, like write anything, then I will fix that. And this worked a little bit better in the end. But still it was chapter by chapter work. So I just had a huge Excel spreadsheet. When I noticed how much words I wrote in each chapter, I was tracking this on a daily basis to see how my progress is. I saw this unfortunate trend line with the final date based on the current speed, which was unfortunately very far away from the current date always. But yeah, this is what worked for me. And the process was that I was writing this in Notepad, because this was the very important decision for me also, whether I should write in Word in the final formatting with all this nice stuff that you already see the final results with the tables. You put an effort on formatting and you saw everything how it will look like, but it was paralyzing also, because I started to think, this is the page that I wrote, should be printed already, maybe tomorrow. This is not a good approach also. So I ended up writing in Notepad++ simply, in raw ASCII, without any images, without anything, just putting all my knowledge to this Notepad. Then I was fixing this incrementally. So maybe this was a solution. I really needed to get rid of this paralysis of starting writing something. Just the most important thing was just to write, to have something.
And we have to say that the book is written in English,
yes,
which is not your first language.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was also quite complex. Yeah. Well, sometimes I have this excellent, clear, and reasonable sentence in my mind that I perfectly was aware how I should how I can and how I won't explain something, but it was in Polish. those thoughts were in Polish. So then I needed to slide somehow, and all this clear sentence that I had was just messed by a English language. So it was problematic. I saw that this problem was reducing in time simply. So I really needed to write something, and day by day, week by week, month by month, I saw less and less problem with that. So it was just a practice. So there is no better solution probably. I was planning to do some exercises on grammar, on vocabulary, and to remain English lessons from the school before writing, but even if I obviously I didn't do that because I had no time, but even if I did that, probably it won't help. It wouldn't help, because this is not grammar from school. This is just writing full sentences with clear flow, and everything is quite complex here. So only practicing is a solution. So if you would like to write a book, you are listening to us now, just start to write. There is no better approach. No magic advices here.
And don't worry about the language.
But but one of the advices, maybe if you are blogging, you had this problem also in Poland. A lot of people are blogging, and the very first decision, whether should I blog in Polish or maybe in English. In Polish, I have a smaller market, but I perfectly well know the language, so it's no barrier. But on the other hand, the reachability of English blog is huge. Everyone in the world can read it, so it's more motivating. But on the other hand, it is in English. So for me, it is better to write in English as a blog posts in English, because you have this practice. You need to write something, someone will read it, so you should at least try to be a little correct, let's say. So having blog in English, because I had some blog in English for some time then, was also helpful.
What changed for you after the book released?
I had a lot of free time. I remember this strange day when I woke up and I realized that I really don't need to write this book no more. So it was a very strange feeling after those 2 years, or even more than 2 years. But then I didn't decide to return to regular work. I just decided to put more effort on building, marketing myself, marketing the book, promoting myself as a kind of, let's say, expert on that field, building my own recognizability. And I was also speaking at conferences before writing a book, but I feel that this book really helped me in being more and more recognizable. More conferences is accepting me when I'm speaking with someone. They have bigger chance to be invited somewhere. I have bigger chance to make workshops in a country that I was never ever before, because a lot of countries I haven't visited yet. But then I can make workshops then, and people know about me. Yesterday I met a guy from Ecuador, which I know that Ecuador is and exists, but I'm not even sure where it exists. And he said that the book is popular there, and I'm also known there, and he's thinking about conference there. Maybe I will be invited. Maybe we'll organize something together. So this is totally something that would not happen if I would not write a book.
And are you rich now, thanks to the
Absolutely not. I mean, financial part of writing a book is totally not existing. If you would like to write a book because of money, it will for sure not directly translate into the earnings from the revenue because the publisher, maybe if you are self-publishing something, maybe there you can gain earn some more money, but then you have this problem, you don't have publisher, you need to market this book somehow yourself. It is not so easy. So I decided to go the other way, to have a publisher, but that publisher takes tremendous percentage of the income. I get only some very small part of the income from every book which is sold. So this is quite small amount of money. It didn't return me totally the cost of writing this book directly. All those months that I was not earning money are not returned in revenues from the book. But again, it was my plan. I was not expecting that I will earn a lot of money from the book directly, but I'm earning from workshops, from trainings, from activities like that. So I believe it in general, the balance is for sure positive. But if you would like to write, if you don't want to monetize your book in that way, that you will decide to make trainings, you decide to be a freelancer, you will not market yourself, but you want really to only write a book and earn from money from this book in your regular work, then it won't work probably. It is really small, strange market, because publisher is getting so many money.
And I remember I saw recently a model where it's similar to Patreon, but for writers, where you release chapter by chapter.
Yes, there is something like
and
that.
your supporters pay per each chapter.
There is I don't know if you are referring to the same site, but there is a LeanPub website, which is for self-publishers, and then you can announce your book, and then you can publish book incrementally, but people can start buying it even before starting. And by the way, I just started writing the sad book there.
So you're still into writing?
Yes, but this time this was to test this platform and to test the idea, because I wrote a very comprehensive 2-kilogram book about memory management, and this is a huge barrier for people just to know what the memory management is, what are the common problems. The answer is inside this book, but it is 1,000 pages, so it's really hard to get the overall knowledge about that. So I'm writing much smaller kind of questions and answer type of book, which will be providing very specific and short answers to specific questions. And I decided to self-publish it as an experiment, so we will see.
So we wish you good luck and thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
That was Konrad Kokosa. Ještě jsme nahráli jednu věc a to byl rozhovor po akci s Tomášem Hercegem, opět jako minule, takže ten si pustíme ještě teď. Na závěr můžeme zase přepnout do češtiny a je tady jako obvykle Tomáš Herceg, organizátor celého tohoto svátku české technické komunity. Tak Tome, jak to bylo letos, jak to dopadlo, jak hodnotíš konferenci?
No to jsi mě teda dostal s tím svátkem české technologické komunity, ale jako dobře se to poslouchá, tak asi jo. No, myslím si, že se nám to docela povedlo, neměli jsme žádný větší organizační kicks, nebo v podstatě žádný, o kterém bych věděl. Trochu jsme se ráno báli, protože jeden z přednášejících přišel tak minutu před začátkem přednášky a naštěstí se to všechno stihlo, bylo připravené všechno velmi rychle, takže nebylo žádný větší zpoždění, ale to jsem se trošičku bál, ale jinak jako všechno fungovalo, všechny přednášky myslím si, že dopadly, já jsem vždycky z každý viděl tak minutu nebo 2, ale jako všichni lidi vypadali spokojení, nikdo neodcházel ze sálu, všechno se líbilo, takže myslím si, že dobrý. Letos se nám vlastně podařilo kromě 2 dnů přednášek udělat i celodenní workshop před tou konferencí, což byl takový experiment, jsme vůbec netušili, jestli se to naplní, jestli o to bude zájem, navíc jsme ho vyhlásili až jakoby někdy skoro koncem září, takže spousta lidí už třeba byla zaregistrovaná, takže jim to možná trošičku rozbilo plány, tak za to se omlouváme, ale on to byl takový ad hoc nápad, který jsme řekli, zkusíme to, uvidíme, jestli o to bude zájem, když jo, tak v tom budeme příští rok pokračovat. Teď už víme, že o to zájem byl a že se ten workshop relativně rychle vyprodal, takže příští rok zkusíme těch workshopů udělat víc. Letos jsme tam vlastně měli téma Myths and Facts of DDD, Domain Driven Design od Dina Esposita a myslím si, že se to povedlo, tam jsem viděl toho workshopu poměrně velkou část, i jsem se s Dinem bavil, je to hrozně zajímavá osobnost, je to člověk, u kterého přesně si dovedu představit, proč píše knížky, protože on když přišel, tak já jsem se ho zeptal, jenom tak jako, jestli jako bude chtít, abychom ho nějak uvedli, nebo jestli se uvede sám. A on mi na tuhletu jednoduchou ano-ne otázku odpovídal asi 10 minut, kde jako úplně, ale jako strhujícím způsobem popsal a zdůvodnil, že teda dospěl k tomu názoru, že se uvede sám a teď jako to bylo nejzdůvodněnější ano, který jsem kdy slyšel. Ale jako on opravdu, co slovo to perla, jako to umí jako těch věcech hrozně hezky mluvit, takže myslím si, že si to účastníci užili. Nevím, jestli jakoby neočekávali třeba trošku něco jiného. Já myslím si, že příští rok to nepojmenujeme workshopy, protože ono to spíš bylo taková, jakoby, víc to bylo přednáška než workshop, ale uvidíme, vyhodnotíme teprve nějaké hodnocení, co vlastně dostaneme za feedback od lidí, tak uvidíme, jak to dopadne.
Jsi spokojený se speakerama, co se ti letos povedli sehnat? Oproti minulý roku tady byli .NET Rocks, letos tady byl hlavní hvězda v podstatě May Chin a byl tady, teď jsme měli rozhovor s Konradem, jsi spokojený vlastně s tímhle složení speakerů třeba oproti minulýmu roku?
Ono těžko říct, myslím si, že ty Richarda a Karla z .NET Rocks znalo asi víc lidí, ale i tak, když jsme tu konferenci vlastně začínali organizovat, když jsem se ptal, jako říkal jsem, bude tady Richard Campbell, Carl Franklin, tak lidi říkali, aha, kdo to je? Takže nevím, jestli jakoby tady tyhle ty jména fungují až tak, jak jsem si původně myslel, že budou fungovat. Asi kdyby se řeklo, že přijede Scott Hanselman, tak toho zná každý, ale je otázkou, kolik takových lidí je, jestli takových těch jako trhákových lidí není třeba jenom 5 nebo 10. Letos mě třeba hrozně zaujal Jared Parsons, což je člověk, který pracuje ve stejném týmu jako ta May Chin, která měla taky teda hodně zajímavou přednášku a ještě půl hodiny po té přednášce ji tady potom lidi zpovídali, takže měl hrozně moc dotazů, takže evidentně to taky bylo dost zajímavý téma, ale i ten Jared, člověk, který vlastně se podílí na vlastně vývoji rozlinu a je v design committee, která vlastně se stará o jazyk C#, tak tenhle ten člověk vykládal o tom, jak vlastně do C# zaváděli na lab reference types a kromě toho, že ukázal, jak to má dopady na nás, běžné vývojáře, tak ukázal i vlastně, co to znamenalo pro ně, tohleto implementovat a to mi přijde, že je strašně cenná informace, strašně cenný pohled na věc, který jako strašně pěkně doplní i to, co z toho vidíme navenek, protože navenek vidíme jenom jako pár warningů nebo to, že občas někam napíšeme vykřičník nebo otazník, ale co se všechno skrývá zatím, to je jako ohromná a hrozně zajímavá oblast a myslím si, že takovýhle typ přednášek, ten se mi třeba strašně líbil, takže pro mě je třeba hlavní osobností ten Jared, ta Mejčin, Konrad samozřejmě taky, ten je známý pro tu svou knížku, takže to je taky jako určitě dobrý člověk. A konec konců i ten Dino Esposito, já jsem jeho knížku četl asi před 20 nebo před 15 lety o ASP.netu, o vlastně základech ASP.net, a byl to jeden z lidí, díky kterému vlastně taky trochu dělám to, co dělám, protože já jsem se z té jeho knížky naučil opravdu ty základní koncepty a on tím, jak to prostě umí jako vysvětlit a občas na to nabídnout i hodně zajímavý pohled, tak myslím si, že tohle mi třeba hodně pomohlo. Ale nevím, kolik lidí Dina Esposita znala, je možný, že kromě mě, který jsem četl jeho knížku, že o něm zase taky jako tolik lidí neslyšelo, i když ve světě je jako docela dost známý.
Mně se hrozně líbí právě na těchto konferencích, jak spousta lidí má příležitost zažít ten svůj fanouškovský moment, jakože konečně ho vidím naživo. A přitom to jsou lidi, kteří pro kohokoliv jinýho mimo tuhletu malou komunitu vůbec nic neznamenají.
Ano.
My si říkáme, tyjo, Scott Hanselman přijede do Prahy, to je paráda. Kdo, co, jako nějaký tady.
No.
Tak to se mi líbí i třeba právě na takovéhle konferenci, kde jsou zahraniční speakři, že fakt mají lidi příležitost je vidět, ty svoje hrdiny. Kdybychom se měli ohlédnout, update 2019 versus 2018 v číslech, kolik přišlo lidí, kolik lidí se nadpodílelo na přípravě, změnilo se to?
Co se týče přípravy, tak jsme měli ten tým v podstatě ve stejné sestavě, dokonce se nám to ještě zkomplikovalo, protože hlavní člověk z toho organizačního týmu, jeho žena v pondělí rodila, takže nemohl přijet, než z Frýdku místku, takže zůstal doma se svými drahými a milovanými, ale ono to až tak nevadilo, protože tady jsme to všechno zvládli v podstatě ve stejné sestavě. Co se týče počtu lidí, minulý rok jsme měli 450 lidí celkem, letos jsme měli kolem 600. Nepočítá se to úplně dobře, protože bylo spousta lidí třeba i z Microsoftu, kteří se tady trošku objevili na pár hodin, takže nevím, jestli je počítat jako jedničku nebo jako nulu v uvozovkách nebo jako 0,5, ale plus minus z těch 600 lidí, což si myslím, že je pěkný. Uvidíme, kolik lidí bude příští rok, už máme datumy 12. a 13. listopadu, takže ještě teda se nemůžete registrovat, ale registraci budeme během pár měsíců otvírat. Sledujte nás na sociálních sítích.
No určitě nemůžeme stejně jako minule opomenout tu otázku, bude Scott a který Scott bude?
Který bude mít zrovna čas. Ono je to s nimi těžký, protože i na tenhle roční konference jsem zval oba dva Scotty, ty nižší Scotty, ne toho úplně největšího Scotta, ale oni mají takovýhle, abych typoval, že oni takovýhle nabídek budou mít tak jako 5 týdně, takže myslím si, že jako je to spíš o náhodě, kterou konferenci si vyberou, protože ono jim to musí sedět do nějakého plánu, aby prostě do Evropy neletěli kvůli jedné konferenci, ale aby zvládli 4 nebo 5 konferencí, takže to je o náhodě, samozřejmě zkoušíme to, ale i třeba se nám včera povedlo, že na tu Q&A session vlastně dorazil úplně neplánovaně Miguel de Icaza. Já jsem se o tom dozvěděl jenom pár dní před tou konferencí a jenom jako ve formě takového jakože hypotetického možná, že bude v Praze a že možná se podaří přesvědčit, že by přišel. Pak už se nikdo neozval, tak já jsem si říkal, OK, tak to jako, takových jako historek jsem slyšel, nebo takových jako předzvěstí jsem slyšel spoustu. A pak se teda konečně objevil, tak jsme ho jako hned flexibilně zařadili do té Q&A session, kde mělo být původně 5 lidí, přidali jsme 6. Bylo to, myslím si, že velmi zajímavý, ale je to opravdu o náhodě. Tady tyhle ty úplně top známé osobnosti se hrozně těžko plánují, na tož pak na rok dopředu, protože oni toho prostě mají hrozně moc a musí si vybírat. A není to ani o tom, jestli se jim třeba ta konference líbí nebo ne, ale spíš jak jim to zrovna časově vyjde a jestli se nezdrží támhle nebo támhle.
Děkujeme za to, že si nám zase nic neslíbil, ale přesto už se těšíme na příští rok a držíme palce, ať je to lepší ještě než letos.
Pokusíme se, zatím budeme mít nějaký schůzky a budeme vůbec řešit, co to znamená být lepší než letos, protože sami nevíme, kterým směrem se vydat. Určitě bych chtěla, aby ta příští konference byla zase ještě o krok dál dopředu. Rozhodně bych nechtěl dělat 15 let furt ty samé akce, ale prostě potřebujeme jít dál, takže uvidíme. Sledujte Twitter, Facebook, tam občas posíláme i nějaké interní zákulisní historky z toho, co na vás chystáme v následujících měsících.
Určitě, tak děkujeme ještě jednou.
Děkuju.
A dost už o updateu. Tím jsme vyčerpali obsah, který jsme pro vás měli z letošní konference. Už se těšíme i na tu příští. Co nás čeká a co nás nemine?
Ještě nás čeká jedna akce do konce roku, kterou pořádáme já, moje skupina okolo .NET Days a pražský Microsoft. Je to meetup se Scottem Hanselmanem a Vendulkou Woltrovou. Uskuteční se to 4. prosince od 10:30 ve pražském Vývorku, takže pokud se chcete zúčastnit, tak neváhejte, ještě jsou volná místa.
Věřím, že Scott Hanselman určitě ocení, že může dělat předskoka na Vendulce. O čem to bude?
Tak Vendulka bude mluvit o tom, jak si vytvořit v programovacím jazyce MakeCode arkádovou hru. A Scott Hanselman bude mluvit o jeho oblíbeném tématu diabetesu a pak bude mluvit o .NET Everywhere, takže to bude taková úvod do toho, kde všude funguje .NET a uvidíme, co se dozvíme.
Výborně. Přestože už to vypadá, že Scott sem jezdí celkem často, tak to můžeme brát jako takovou vzácnost. Takže pokud můžete, tak určitě nevynechejte a ještě se zaregistrujte. Příští týden 4.12. v Praze tahle úžasná akce. Já bych nemám teda repo týdne tentokrát, ale mám něco, má něco společného s počítači, má to úplně něco společného s technologiemi Microsoftu, ale to mi určitě odpustíte. Našel jsem, že v rámci projektu 100 studentských revolucí byly přepsány některé textovky z doby předrevoluční. A to konkrétně přestavba Indiana Jones na Václavském náměstí a hra 17.11.1989. Pokud si chcete zavzpomínat na tu dobu, kterou vlastně teď jejíž výročí teď slavíme, tak se na ně podívejte, možná si vzpomenete, že jste třeba na ZX Spectru tyhle hry i hráli. Tentokrát už si je ponovu můžete zahrát v prohlížeči. Autoři se snažili zachovat ten feeling toho originálu, ale už to běží na moderních technologiích a může to být zajímavý způsob, jak si geekovsky zavzpomínat.
Určitě, a to je pro dnešek již všechno, takže děkujeme, že nás posloucháte, určitě nás poslouchejte dál na všech kanálech od Spotify, Apple Podcast a všude, kde vám to vyhovuje, a budeme se těšit za 14 dní. Naslyšenou.
Mějte se krásně, budeme se těšit samozřejmě i na vaše připomínky, názory nebo jenom ohlasy na info@.netpodcast.cz. Tam najdete i všechny epizody, jejich popisy, odkazy a podobně. No a kdybyste nám chtěli koupit kafe, tak jsme na Buy Me a Coffee. Mějte se krásně, budeme se těšit za 14 dní.